You wake up every morning and the silence is deafening. The house that once echoed with laughter, with plans, with the sounds of life being lived alongside someone, now only reflects your own footsteps back to you. You look at your bank account and wonder if there is enough, not just for today, but for all the tomorrows that stretch out before you like an endless horizon, with no companion to share the view. You have been faithful. You have prayed. You have given. You have trusted God through every season. And yet here you are, watching the years accumulate, while the people around you seem to disappear one by one. The children have their own lives now, scattered across cities and states, busy with careers and families that leave little room for the parent who sacrificed everything. Friends have moved away, passed away, or simply drifted into their own isolated worlds. And you sit there, in the quiet, wondering if this is what faithfulness gets you. Loneliness, uncertainty, the creeping fear that you will run out of resources before you run out of days. But let me tell you something that will change everything you think you know about this season of your life. What you are experiencing right now is not abandonment. It is not punishment. It is not God forgetting about you while everyone else gets to enjoy the fruit of their labor surrounded by loved ones. What you are experiencing is the most profound setup for the greatest demonstration of divine provision and supernatural multiplication you have ever witnessed in your entire existence. There is a reason why you are still here, still breathing, still waking up every day even when the loneliness feels like it might crush you. There is a reason why your faithfulness has not wavered, even though the circumstances have not lined up the way you prayed they would. And there is a reason why I am speaking to you right now, at this exact moment in your life, to reveal to you what God does with people like you. People who age alone but refuse to abandon their faith. People who keep tithing even when the budget is tight. People who keep showing up to church even when there is no one waiting for them in the pew beside them. People who keep praying even when the answers seem delayed beyond reason. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are being positioned for something so extraordinary that if I told you right now exactly what God has planned, you would think I was exaggerating. But I am not. And by the time you finish listening to what I am about to share with you, you will understand that your current season of solitude is not your final destination. It is your launching pad. John D. Rockefeller understood something about life that most people never grasp. He understood that the greatest fortunes are not built during seasons of comfort and abundance. They are built during seasons of discipline, focus, and strategic positioning when everyone else is distracted by temporary pleasure. Rockefeller did not become the wealthiest man in modern history because he followed the crowd. He became wealthy because he understood that certain seasons of life require you to stand alone, to think differently, to make decisions that no one else around you will understand or support. And he understood that the people who are willing to endure the loneliness of being misunderstood are the same people who eventually experience the abundance of being vindicated. Now, you might be thinking, what does Rockefeller have to do with me and my situation? I am not trying to build an empire. I am just trying to make it through my senior years without becoming a burden to anyone. But that is exactly the mentality that has kept you trapped in a cycle of lack and limitation. You have been conditioned to believe that aging alone means shrinking your dreams, lowering your expectations, and accepting less than what God promised you. But that is not what Scripture teaches, and it is certainly not what the principles of kingdom prosperity teach. When you study the life of Rockefeller through the lens of faith, you discover that his wealth was not accidental. It was the result of living by certain immutable principles that align perfectly with biblical stewardship. He understood that money is a tool, not a master. He understood that wealth is built through consistency, not convenience. And most importantly, he understood that the people who prosper in their later years are not the people who spent their youth chasing every opportunity and spreading themselves thin. They are the people who focused, who eliminated distractions, who invested wisely, and who built systems that would continue to generate increase long after their ability to work had diminished. And this is where your story intersects with the revelation I am about to give you. You may be aging alone, but you are not aging without purpose. You may be experiencing solitude, but you are not experiencing abandonment. What you are experiencing is the divine removal of every distraction, every dependency, every false source of security that would have prevented you from receiving what God is about to release into your life. Think about it. When you had people around you constantly, where was your focus? It was divided. Your attention was split between managing relationships, meeting expectations, trying to please people who were never going to be satisfied no matter what you did. Your resources were being drained by obligations that God never assigned to you. Your time was being consumed by activities that had nothing to do with your purpose. Your energy was being depleted by emotional vampires who took everything you had to give and never once considered what you needed in return. But now, in this season of solitude, something powerful is happening. You are being recalibrated, your focus is being sharpened, your priorities are being realigned, and most importantly, your dependence is being transferred from human sources to the only source that never runs dry, God Himself. This is not a season of loss. This is a season of preparation. And the people who understand this principle are the people who emerge from seasons of isolation with more wealth, more wisdom, more influence, and more impact than they ever had when they were surrounded by crowds. Let me take you deeper into what Rockefeller understood about aging and wealth. Most people believe that your earning power decreases as you age. They believe that once you reach a certain age, your value in the marketplace diminishes, your opportunities dry up, and your only option is to survive on whatever you manage to accumulate during your working years. But Rockefeller proved this belief to be completely false. He understood that true wealth is not built on your ability to trade time for money. True wealth is built on your ability to create systems, to develop wisdom, to leverage relationships, and to position yourself in such a way that money works for you instead of you working for money. And this type of wealth does not decrease with age, it increases. Because the longer you live, the more wisdom you accumulate. The more wisdom you accumulate, the better your decisions become. And the better your decisions become, the more value you can create in every area of your life. This is why some of the wealthiest, most influential people in history did not hit their stride until their later years. They understood that youth is not an advantage when it comes to building lasting prosperity. Wisdom is, and wisdom only comes through experience, through mistakes, through seasons of testing and refinement. So when you look at your current situation and you see yourself aging alone, I want you to shift your perspective. Stop seeing it as a deficit. Start seeing it as an advantage. You are in a season right now where you have something that most people your age do not have. You have clarity, you have focus, you have time to think, to plan, to strategize, to hear from God without all the noise and chaos that comes with managing relationships and obligations. You have the opportunity to steward your resources in ways that will create generational impact. You have the freedom to make decisions based on what God is telling you to do, not based on what other people expect you to do. And most importantly, you have the space to become the person God has been trying to make you into your entire life. The person who is not dependent on human approval. The person who is not swayed by popular opinion. The person who is not distracted by temporary pleasure. The person who understands that true prosperity is not measured by how many people are sitting at your table, but by how much fruit is growing in your garden. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds great in theory, but what about the practical reality? What about the bills that keep coming? What about the medical expenses that keep increasing? What about the fear that I might outlive my money? What about the loneliness that feels unbearable some days? I hear you, and I am not going to stand here and pretend that aging alone is easy. It is not. But what I am going to tell you is that if you apply the principles I am about to share with you, you will discover that God has already made provision for every single need you have. The problem is not that the provision does not exist. The problem is that you have been looking for it in the wrong places. You have been looking for it in relationships that were never meant to sustain you. You have been looking for it in jobs that were never meant to fulfill you. You have been looking for it in investments that were never meant to secure you. But when you shift your focus and start looking for provision in the place where it actually originates, which is the heart and hand of a faithful God who promised to never leave you nor forsake you, everything changes. Before I go any further, I need to pause for a moment and ask you something. And I want you to really think about this before you answer. What is the one thing about aging alone that scares you the most? Is it the fear of running out of money? Is it the fear of becoming sick with no one to take care of you? Is it the fear of dying alone with no one to remember your life? Is it the feeling that you wasted your best years being faithful to a God who has not kept His promises to you? I want you to take a moment right now and drop a comment below. Do not overthink it. Just be honest. Complete this sentence. My greatest fear about aging alone is blank, and I need God to show me blank. I am asking you to do this, not because I need to know your business, but because you need to release it. There is something powerful that happens when you articulate your fear out loud, when you put it into words, when you admit to yourself and to God that you are struggling. Because here is what most people do not understand. God is not afraid of your fears. He is not shocked by your doubts. He is not disappointed by your questions. What He is waiting for is your honesty, your vulnerability, your willingness to stop pretending that everything is fine when it is not. And when you drop that comment below, you are not just sharing your struggle with me. You are breaking the silence. You are taking the first step toward freedom. You are opening the door for God to meet you exactly where you are. So go ahead, type it out. My greatest fear about aging alone is blank, and I need God to show me blank. And while you are at it, let me know if this message is speaking to you, because I want to make sure I am creating content that actually addresses what you are going through. Your comment might be the exact thing that helps someone else who is reading through the comments and feeling the same way you do. Now let me tell you what God does with people who age alone but remain faithful. He multiplies their influence. He extends their impact. He opens doors that were closed to them their entire life. He brings opportunities that they never could have accessed when they were busy managing the demands of relationships and obligation. He gives them a voice that carries weight because it comes from a place of tested faith and proven character. And most importantly, He ensures that their latter days are greater than their former days, not because they earned it through their own strength, but because they positioned themselves to receive it through their faithfulness. You see, there is a principle in Scripture that most people overlook. It is found in the book of Job. Job lost everything: his wealth, his health, his children, his reputation. He sat in the ashes alone, scraping his sores with broken pottery, listening to his wife tell him to curse God and die. And his friends, who were supposed to comfort him, spent their time accusing him of hidden sin. Job aged rapidly during his season of suffering, but he did not abandon his faith. He did not curse God. He did not give up. And at the end of his story, God restored everything Job had lost and gave him twice as much as he had before. But here is what most people miss when they read the story of Job. The blessing did not come because Job was perfect. It came because Job was faithful. God did not wait until Job had all the answers. He did not wait until Job understood why he was suffering. He did not wait until Job had a community of supporters rallying around him. He restored Job while he was still sitting in the ashes, still covered in sores, still surrounded by people who doubted him. And the reason God did this is because He wanted to demonstrate to everyone watching that His provision is not dependent on your circumstances. It is dependent on your faithfulness. And if you can remain faithful when you have nothing, when you are alone, when you are hurting, when you have every reason to give up, then God can trust you with abundance. Because He knows you will not worship the blessing, you will worship the blesser. And that is the kind of person God is looking for to demonstrate His power through in these last days. People who have been refined by fire, people who have been tested by time, people who have been stripped of every false support system, so that when they stand, everyone knows it was not their own strength that sustained them. It was the grace of God. Rockefeller had a saying. He said, "I would rather earn 1% off the efforts of 100 people than 100% off my own efforts." And what he meant by that was that true wealth is not built through your own labor alone. It is built through your ability to create systems that multiply your impact. And this principle applies not just to business, but to every area of life, including your spiritual inheritance. When you remain faithful to God during seasons of isolation, you are not just securing your own future. You are creating a spiritual legacy that will impact generations you will never meet. Your faithfulness is being recorded in heaven. Your prayers are being stored up like incense before the throne of God. Your tears are being collected in His bottle. And every single act of obedience, every single moment of worship, every single decision to trust God, when it made no logical sense, is creating a compounding effect in the spiritual realm that will manifest in ways you cannot even begin to imagine. Think about Abraham. He left everything he knew, everyone he loved, every source of security he had, and went to a land he had never seen because God told him to go. And for years, he wandered alone with nothing but a promise. No children, no inheritance, no visible evidence that God was going to fulfill what He said. But Abraham kept believing. He kept obeying. he kept offering sacrifices, he kept building altars, and eventually, God gave him a son. But the blessing did not stop with Isaac. It continued through Jacob, through the 12 tribes of Israel, through King David, through Jesus Christ himself. Abraham's faithfulness during his season of isolation created a legacy that changed the entire world. And you need to understand that the same principle applies to your life. Your faithfulness right now is not just about you. It is about everyone who will come after you. It is about the spiritual inheritance you are leaving behind. It is about the doors you are opening for generations that have not even been born yet. And if you can grasp this, if you can shift your focus from your temporary discomfort to your eternal impact, you will stop feeling sorry for yourself and start stewarding this season with the gravity it deserves. Now let me address the financial aspect of this directly, because I know many of you are struggling not just with loneliness, but with the very practical reality of limited resources. You look at your bank account and you do not see multiplication. You see depletion. You look at your budget and you do not see abundance. You see lack. And you wonder how any of this spiritual talk translates into the tangible provision you need to survive. Let me give you a framework that Rockefeller lived by, and that aligns perfectly with biblical stewardship. Rockefeller believed that money has 3 purposes: to give, to save, and to invest. And he believed that you should allocate every dollar you receive into one of these 3 categories. The first 10% he gave. The second 10% he saved. And the remaining 80% he lived on and invested. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I cannot afford to give 10%. I can barely afford to pay my bills. But that is exactly the mentality that keeps you in a cycle of lack. Because when you withhold the tithe, you are essentially telling God that you do not trust Him to provide for you. You are saying, I need to hold on to every penny, because I am afraid there will not be enough. But Scripture makes it very clear. When you honor God with the first fruits of your increase, He opens the windows of heaven and pours out a blessing so big you cannot contain it. And here is something most people do not understand about tithing. The tithe is not a tax, it is a seed. When you give 10% to God, you are not losing that money. You are planting it into the kingdom, and it is going to produce a harvest that far exceeds what you gave. But the key is consistency. You cannot plant one seed and expect an immediate harvest. You have to keep planting, season after season, even when you do not see results, because every seed you plant is accumulating in the spiritual realm, and eventually, there is going to be a tipping point where the harvest breaks through into the natural realm, and you will look at your life and wonder how everything changed so quickly. It did not change quickly. It changed gradually through your consistent faithfulness. This is exactly what Rockefeller understood about compound interest. He knew that small, consistent investments over time create exponential growth. And the same principle applies to your spiritual and financial life. Small, consistent acts of obedience create exponential increase. So if you are aging alone and you are struggling financially, the first thing you need to do is get back to the foundation. Start tithing. I do not care if it is $10 or $10,000. Whatever 10% of your income is, give it. And do not give it begrudgingly. Give it with joy. Give it with expectation. Give it with the full confidence that God sees your faithfulness and He is going to reward it. The second thing you need to do is start saving, even if it is just a few dollars a week. Open a savings account and start putting money aside, because savings is not just about having a cushion for emergencies. Savings is about demonstrating to God that you are a good steward of what He has given you. And when God sees that you can manage a little, He will trust you with more. The third thing you need to do is start thinking like an investor instead of a consumer. Most people who are aging alone fall into the trap of survival mode. They live paycheck to paycheck, social security check to social security check, spending every dollar that comes in and hoping there will be enough next month. But that is not how you build wealth. That is not how you create security. That is not how you leave a legacy. You have to start looking at every dollar as a tool, not as a means to an end. Ask yourself, how can I use this dollar to create more value? Can I invest it in something that will generate income? Can I use it to develop a skill that will increase my earning potential? Can I lend it to someone who will pay me back with interest? Can I plant it into a ministry that is producing kingdom results? And I already know what some of you are thinking. I am too old to start investing. I am too old to learn new skills. I am too old to build anything significant. But that is a lie from the enemy designed to keep you locked in mediocrity for the rest of your life. You are never too old to start building. You are never too old to start learning. You are never too old to start stewarding what God has given you with excellence. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Caleb was 85 years old when he asked for the mountain that God promised him. Anna was 84 years old when she prophesied over Jesus in the temple. These were not people in the prime of their youth. These were people in their senior years who understood that age is not a limitation. It is an advantage, because the older you get, the more wisdom you have. The more wisdom you have, the better your decisions are. And the better your decisions are, the more fruit your life produces. So stop using your age as an excuse. Stop using your solitude as a reason to give up. Stop using your financial situation as evidence that God has forgotten about you. None of that is true. What is true is that you are in a season of divine preparation. You are being positioned for a comeback that will shock everyone who counted you out. You are being set up for a testimony that will inspire everyone who hears it. You are being groomed for a legacy that will outlive you by generations. But you have to cooperate with what God is doing. You cannot sit in self-pity and expect breakthrough. You cannot live in fear and expect abundance. You cannot hoard what little you have and expect multiplication. You have to start acting like someone who believes that God is faithful. You have to start making decisions like someone who trusts that God is in control. You have to start stewarding your resources like someone who understands that everything you have belongs to God, and you are just the manager. Rockefeller lived by a principle that he learned from his mother. She told him, "Willful waste makes woeful want." What that means is that the way you handle small things determines how God trusts you with big things. If you are wasteful with $5, God is not going to trust you with 5,000. If you are careless with your time, God is not going to give you more opportunities. If you are lazy with your health, God is not going to extend your years. Everything is connected. And the people who prosper in their later years are not the people who got lucky. They are the people who were faithful with the little things when no one was watching. They were the people who kept tithing when it hurt. They were the people who kept saving when it was inconvenient. They were the people who kept investing when everyone else was consuming. And now, in their senior years, they are reaping the harvest of seeds they planted decades ago. This is what I want for you. I do not want you to just survive your senior years. I want you to thrive. I want you to live with such abundance that people look at your life and know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is real and He keeps His promise. Let me give you another principle that Rockefeller lived by that will completely transform your mindset about money and aging. He said, "The secret to success is to do common things uncommonly well." Most people think that in order to be successful, you have to do something extraordinary. You have to start a business. You have to invent something. You have to be famous. But that is not true. Success is not about doing something no one else has ever done. Success is about doing what everyone else is doing, but doing it with a level of excellence, discipline, and consistency that sets you apart. And this applies directly to your financial situation. You do not need some complicated investment strategy. You do not need to win the lottery. You do not need a miracle windfall. What you need is to take the resources you have right now, no matter how small, and steward them with uncommon excellence. Pay your bills on time. Balance your checkbook. Track your expenses. Eliminate waste. Cancel subscriptions you do not use. Stop buying things you do not need. Cook at home instead of eating out. Walk instead of driving when possible. Fix what is broken instead of replacing it. These are common things, but when you do them uncommonly well, they create uncommon results. And here is the part that most people miss. When God sees that you are faithful in the natural, He releases supernatural increase. Because faithfulness in the natural is what positions you to receive blessing in the spiritual. Think about the widow of Zarephath. She was down to her last meal, one handful of flour, one jar of oil. She was preparing to cook it, eat it with her son, and then die. But when the prophet Elijah showed up and asked her to feed him first, she made a choice. She chose to be faithful with the little she had. And what happened? The flour and the oil did not run out. It kept multiplying, day after day after day, meal after meal after meal. Not because she had a lot to start with, but because she was faithful with the little she had. And this is the key. You do not need a lot to start with. You just need faithfulness. Because God is not looking for people who have it all together. He is looking for people who will trust Him when they do not. He is not looking for people who are self-sufficient. He is looking for people who are God-dependent. And when he finds someone like that, someone who is aging alone but still tithing, still praying, still believing, still obeying, he makes them an example of what it looks like when heaven invades earth. Now I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about the emotional and relational aspect of aging alone, because I know that for many of you, the financial struggle is real, but the emotional struggle is even more intense. You feel invisible. You feel forgotten. You feel like everyone has moved on with their lives, and you have been left behind. And the loneliness is crushing. I am not going to minimize that. But what I am going to tell you is that your solitude is not a punishment. It is a preparation. God is using this season to strip away every false sense of security, every codependent relationship, every distraction that would have prevented you from stepping into your purpose. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it does not feel like preparation. It feels like abandonment. But that is because you are in the middle of the process and you cannot see the end result yet. But God can. And He knows that if He left you surrounded by people who were draining your energy, consuming your resources, and distracting you from your calling, you would never become the person He created you to be. So He removed them, not to hurt you, but to help you, not to isolate you, but to elevate, not to leave you alone, but to teach you that you are never truly alone because He is always with you. And here is something I need you to understand. The people who prosper in their later years are not the people who have the most relationships. They are the people who have the right relationships. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth, alignment over affinity. Rockefeller understood this. He had very few close friends, but the friends he did have were people of influence, integrity, and vision. They were people who challenged him, sharpened him, and pushed him to think bigger. They were not people who needed something from him. They were people who added value to his life. And as you move through this season of solitude, God is going to bring the right people into your life at the right time. But He is not going to do it until He has first taught you how to be whole on your own. Because if you are dependent on relationships for your identity, your security, and your sense of worth, then you are not ready for the relationships God wants to give you. You will attract people who need you instead of people who value you. You will tolerate dysfunction instead of demanding excellence. You will settle for companionship instead of holding out for covenant. And that is not the life God has for you. So if you are aging alone right now, embrace it. Not in a spirit of resignation, but in a spirit of anticipation. Embrace the solitude as an opportunity to develop intimacy with God that you never could have developed when you were surrounded by noise and chaos. Embrace the silence as an opportunity to hear His voice more clearly than you ever have before. Embrace the simplicity as an opportunity to focus on what really matters instead of being distracted by things that do not. And most importantly, embrace the process, knowing that this is not your destination. This is your preparation. And the day is coming when you are going to look back on this season and thank God that He loved you enough to take you through it. Because on the other side of this season is a version of you that is stronger, wiser, more anointed, and more effective than you have ever been. And that version of you is going to do things that the current version of you could never do. That version of you is going to have influence that the current version of you could never handle. That version of you is going to walk in authority that the current version of you could never steward. But you cannot get there by skipping the process. You have to go through it. And the only way through is faithfulness. Let me give you a biblical example that ties all of this together. Joseph was 17 years old when his brothers sold him into slavery. He was alone, separated from his family, separated from everything familiar, thrown into a foreign land where he did not speak the language, did not know the culture, and had no one to turn to. And for 13 years, he lived in obscurity, serving in Potiphar's house, sitting in prison for a crime he did not commit, forgotten by everyone except God. But Joseph did not give up. He did not become bitter. He did not abandon his faith. He kept serving with excellence. He kept interpreting dreams. He kept trusting that God had a plan even when he could not see it. And at age 30, everything changed. Pharaoh had a dream. No one could interpret it. Someone remembered Joseph. And in one day, Joseph went from the prison to the palace, from forgotten to famous, from servant to second in command of the most powerful nation on earth. And the reason God promoted Joseph is because he knew Joseph had been refined by the fire of isolation. He knew Joseph was not going to be seduced by power because he had learned to find his identity in God alone. He knew Joseph was not going to be corrupted by wealth because he had learned to be content with nothing. He knew Joseph was not going to abuse his authority because he had learned humility through suffering. And this is what God is doing in your life right now. He is preparing you for promotion. He is refining you for increase. He is positioning you for influence, but he cannot do it while you are still dependent on human approval, human provision, and human validation. He has to strip all of that away first. He has to teach you that your security is in him alone. And once you learn that lesson, once you internalize that truth, once you live from that reality instead of just knowing it intellectually, then he can release you into the fullness of what he has for you. And when he does, it is going to happen fast. Doors that have been closed your entire life are going to fly open. Opportunities that seemed impossible are going to become inevitable. Favor that you could never manufacture on your own is going to follow you everywhere you go. Resources that you could never access through your own effort are going to be placed at your disposal. And people are going to look at you and ask, "What happened? How did everything change so quickly?" And you are going to be able to tell them the truth. It did not change quickly. It changed gradually through years of faithfulness that no one saw, through years of obedience that no one applauded, through years of perseverance when no one believed, through years of trusting God when it made no sense. And now, you are walking in the manifestation of everything He promised. This is why I am so passionate about helping you understand what God does with people who age alone but remain faithful. Because your story is not over. Your best days are not behind you. Your greatest impact is not in the past. Everything you have gone through up until this point has been preparation for what is coming. And if you will just hold on a little longer, if you will just keep believing a little longer, if you will just keep obeying a little longer, you are going to see breakthrough like you have never seen before. And when it comes, it is going to be so overwhelming, so undeniable, so extraordinary that you will not be able to take credit for it. Everyone will know it was God. Everyone will know it was His grace. Everyone will know it was His faithfulness. And that is exactly what He wants. He wants your life to be a billboard for His glory. He wants your testimony to inspire others. He wants your story to prove that He is still in the business of doing the impossible for people who believe. Now, if you are still watching this video, I want to invite you to take the next step in your journey. I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that you do not miss any of the content I am creating specifically for people like you. People who are tired of living in lack. People who are ready to step into the abundance God has for them. People who want to understand how to apply kingdom principles to their finances so that they can experience breakthrough in every area of their life. This channel is not just about information. It is about transformation. It is not just about teaching you what the Bible says about money. It is about showing you how to apply those principles in practical, tangible ways that produce real results. And if you are serious about changing your financial situation, if you are serious about living the rest of your life in overflow instead of just getting by, if you are serious about leaving a legacy instead of just surviving until you die, then this is the community you need to be a part of. We are building something special here, a community of believers who are done with the status quo, who are done with poverty mindsets, who are done with settling for less than what God promised. And we are walking together toward the abundant life that Jesus died to give us. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and let me know in the comments that you are part of the family now. Type something like, "I am ready for overflow," or "I am claiming my comeback," or whatever resonates with you. Because when you make that declaration publicly, it does something in the spiritual realm. It activates your faith, it aligns you with the promise, and it positions you to receive everything God has been waiting to release into your life. Before I close, I want to leave you with one final thought, one final principle that I believe will anchor everything I have shared with you today. It is a principle that Rockefeller lived by, and that is rooted deeply in Scripture. He said, "Do not be afraid to give up the good to go for the great." Most people settle for good. They settle for comfortable. They settle for safe. They settle for predictable. And as a result, they never experience great. They never experience extraordinary. They never experience the fullness of what is possible. Because great requires risk. Great requires faith. Great requires letting go of what is familiar and stepping into what is unknown, and most people are not willing to do that. But you are not most people. If you were, you would have stopped watching this video a long time ago. The fact that you are still here tells me that there is something different about you. There is a hunger in you that will not be satisfied with mediocrity. There is a fire in you that refuses to be extinguished by disappointment. There is a destiny in you that is bigger than your current circumstances, and God is calling you to give up the good so that you can go for the great. What is the good that you need to let go of? Is it the good of complaining about your situation instead of changing it? Is it the good of blaming other people for where you are instead of taking responsibility? Is it the good of waiting for someone to rescue you instead of partnering with God to build the life you want? Is it the good of living in survival mode instead of stepping into stewardship mode? Whatever it is, I am telling you right now, let it go, release it, surrender it to God, and watch what He does when you create space in your life for Him to work. Because the truth is, He has been trying to bless you for years. He has been trying to promote you for years. He has been trying to open doors for you for years, but He could not because your hands were full, your heart was closed, your mind was stuck, and He needed you to let go of the good so that He could give you the great. Well, this is your moment. This is your opportunity. This is your invitation to step into everything God has for you. You are not aging alone because God abandoned you. You are aging alone because God is preparing you. You are not struggling financially because God forgot you. You are struggling financially because God is testing you. You are not experiencing solitude because God is punishing you. You are experiencing solitude because God is positioning you. And when the fullness of His plan is revealed, when the breakthrough manifests, when the doors open, when the provision flows, when the relationships align, when the influence increases, you are going to look back on this season and say, it was worth it. Every tear was worth it. Every lonely night was worth it. Every financial struggle was worth it. Every moment of doubt was worth it, because it produced in me something that could not have been produced any other way. It produced in me the character to carry the blessing. It produced in me the wisdom to steward the increase. It produced in me the humility to give God all the glory. And now I am walking in a dimension of favor, provision, and impact that I never could have accessed if I had not gone through what I went through. So I am going to leave you with this challenge. Over the next 7 days, I want you to do something radical. I want you to act like someone who believes that God is going to do exactly what He promised. I want you to tithe, even if it scares you. I want you to save, even if it is just a few dollars. I want you to invest in your future, even if you do not see how it is going to pay off. I want you to speak life over your situation, instead of death. I want you to worship in the middle of the wait, instead of complaining about the delay. I want you to serve someone else even though you feel like you need to be served. I want you to give thanks for what you have instead of focusing on what you lack. And I want you to watch what God does when you demonstrate that kind of faith. Because when you act in faith before you see the evidence, you activate the supernatural. And the supernatural is what changes everything. The supernatural is what turns water into wine. The supernatural is what multiplies loaves and fishes. The supernatural is what opens prison doors. The supernatural is what parts Red Seas. And the supernatural is what is going to shift your financial situation from barely surviving to abundantly thriving. But it starts with a decision to stop living like a victim and start living like a victor, a decision to stop behaving like you are forgotten and start behaving like you are favored, a decision to stop acting like you are running out and start acting like you are being filled up. So make that decision today, right now, in this moment, and watch your life transform before your very eyes. God is faithful. His promises are yes and amen. And your latter days are going to be greater than your former days, not because you are perfect, but because you are faithful. And that is all He needs to do the impossible.